Indoor attractions are meant to be fun, places where people go to escape the outside world. But sometimes things go very wrong. In this video, we'll look at 5 real stories of people who lost their lives in some of the most disturbing ways inside theme parks, haunted houses, and escape rooms. These are not accidents you'd expect, and some still raise more questions than answers. It was June 14, 1986, in Alberta, Canada. Inside the massive West Edmonton Mall, then the world's largest shopping center, hundreds of people gathered at Galaxyland, home to the biggest indoor amusement park. Its main attraction was the Mindbender, a towering indoor roller coaster with 3 loops. Known for its speed and safety, the ride drew large crowds. That day, 4 friends boarded the Mindbender. Only one of them would survive. Rodney Chayko, a 26-year-old welder from Fort McMurray, drove down with his friend David Sager, 24, for a night out. They ended up on the Mindbender, sitting in the last car of the train. In front of them sat a young couple, 24-year-old Tony Mandrusiak and his fiancée, 21-year-old Cindy Sims. Everyone was in high spirits. David had recently taken part in a local contest at a bar and was still enjoying the attention. The 4 friends pulled down their shoulder restraints and waited for the ride to begin. But what was supposed to be a fun night turned tragic within minutes. As the train started, it climbed a lift hill, then dropped into a sharp turn and entered the first loop. It then rose again and sped into the second loop. On the surface, everything seemed normal, but a serious problem had already started. 4 bolts on a wheel assembly under the 4th car had loosened. These bolts were crucial for keeping the car stable on the track. As the train reached nearly 60 miles per hour, the loose parts caused the car to shake violently. Right before the 3rd loop, the wheel assembly came off completely. The 4th car, holding Rodney, David, Tony, and Cindy, became unstable. It slammed against the track and the restraints couldn't hold. All 4 passengers were thrown out. David, Tony, and Cindy did not survive. Rodney was the only one who lived, but he suffered severe injuries. Rodney later said he remembered the swaying and grabbing a handle before hitting the ground. His legs were crushed, his shoulder and ribs were broken, his pelvis, feet, and lower back were shattered. Doctors had trouble even counting the fractures. Some believed his legs might have to be removed, but after several surgeries and metal plates inserted into his body, he stood again 6 months later, this time with leg braces. Meanwhile, the ride continued. The train couldn't finish the last loop due to the damaged car. It rolled backward and slammed into a concrete pillar, stopping the train mid-loop. Some riders were left hanging upside down. 2 teenage girls said they had felt the ride shaking just before it stopped. 19 people were taken to the hospital. Most were not seriously hurt, but 3 lives had already been lost. The next day, the area was closed off. Investigators from various agencies came in to examine the wreckage. They found that 4 loose bolts had caused the failure. The ride, built by a company in West Germany that had since closed, had several design problems. The Mindbender was shut down for over a year. It was redesigned with safer features. The trains were shortened, reducing the number of passengers. Extra wheels and seatbelts were added. Anti-rollback systems were installed. When the ride reopened in 1987, it remained popular for years. Rodney Chayko never forgot what happened. During his recovery, he married his girlfriend Joanne. Though he returned to work, constant pain forced him to retire early. He now lives in Revelstoke, British Columbia, using medical marijuana to ease the pain. He has visited the mall since with his family, but still thinks about that day. The mall never placed a public memorial. Rodney asked for a bench near the crash site, but the mall only offered a plaque in an office. To him, that wasn't enough. In January 2023, the Mindbender was officially retired. Its trains were reused at another amusement park in Indiana. By October, the ride had been fully removed, but Rodney never forgot. He marked the anniversary by making custom hoodies that said "Survivor" on the arm. When he shares his story, people always say the same thing. They remember where they were that day. And for Rodney, that day never left. It was September 16, 2017 in Hong Kong. Chung Cheo-kit, a 21-year-old university student, had been invited to Ocean Park by a friend who worked for a Swire Group company. The park was holding a private staff event that day. Although Halloween attractions weren't yet open to the public, corporate groups were given early access. One of the main attractions was called Buried Alive. This was a solo haunted house experience. Guests would lie inside a coffin-shaped box that doubled as a slide. Once sealed inside, they'd be lowered into a dark maze below. The ride was designed to feel like being buried and then escaping from a grave. It was intense and meant to unsettle people, typical of Halloween events. Chung and his friends, including his girlfriend, planned to go through the attraction one at a time. Chung entered first. His girlfriend waited outside, expecting him to be done in about 10 minutes like their other friend. But 10 minutes passed, then 15. Chung didn't come out. At 2:06 p.m., Ocean Park staff called emergency services. Chung had been found unconscious inside the attraction. He had a serious head injury and was rushed to Ruttenji Hospital. Not long after arriving, he was declared dead. Ocean Park's chief executive officer, Matthias Lee, said Chung had been discovered just 5 minutes after he entered the ride. The cause of the incident wasn't immediately known. A full investigation began, led by the police and the Electrical and Mechanical Services Department. More information was soon uncovered. Eva Aoyong Yiwa, the park's director of events, explained that Chung had somehow left the main path after exiting the coffin slide. He ended up in a backstage area meant only for staff, a restricted zone used for maintenance and housing ride machinery. This area was guarded by employees and monitored by surveillance cameras, yet Chung still managed to enter it. Inside that area was part of the coffin slide's lower machinery. Investigators believe that Chung had been struck by the moving coffin while it was being lowered. The impact caused a severe head injury. Witnesses saw blood at the scene, and Chung was found unconscious behind the slide, an area no visitor should have reached. The slide was 4.5 meters long and 2.5 meters high, passing an independent safety inspection just 2 days before the incident. There was no mechanical failure, but it lacked sensors to detect if someone was underneath, so the machinery kept moving regardless. Joel Brett Talaco, the slide's designer, testified that guests entered through a coffin on the first floor and slid into a dark maze below. Staff monitored both ends and at least 10 cameras covered the attraction, yet no one noticed Chung entering the restricted area. Structural engineer Greg Wong Chak Yan criticized the design. He said off-limits areas should have been clearly marked and locked. He also noted that haunted houses should have only one path to prevent confusion, especially in low-light settings designed to disorient guests. Investigators concluded that Chung had likely made a wrong turn after sliding down, possibly due to poor lighting or unclear layout. Why no one saw him go the wrong way remains unknown. The restricted zone had no barriers, no clear warning signs, and no motion sensors. Chung's girlfriend, Hui Loxi, waited anxiously for him. When he didn't come out, she became worried. Park staff later carried him out on a stretcher. He was unconscious and bleeding. It was already too late. The couple had been in a serious relationship and were reportedly talking about their future together. Her grief was clear. Ocean Park shut down Buried Alive immediately. Matthias Lee promised full cooperation with the investigation and pledged to improve safety measures. Executive Director Todd Hoagland stated they would do everything necessary to prevent something like this from happening again. Though the ride had been running since 2001 without incident, this event changed everything. It raised serious concerns about safety oversight and design flaws in amusement park attractions. What was supposed to be a fun night turned into a nightmare, one that left a young man dead and a lot of unanswered questions behind. It was April 22, 2023 in Keswick, a town in England's Lake District. Carl Anthony O'Keefe, a 49-year-old father from Lancaster, had taken his kids to a birthday party at the Kong Adventure Center. He was a devoted dad, passionate about science, and applying for a doctorate in astrophysics. He also strongly supported the neurodiverse community. Carl was known for being careful and experienced in climbing, but that day, something went very wrong. The Kong Adventure Center features climbing walls, rope courses, and a 70-meter indoor fiberglass cave system designed to give people a realistic caving experience in a safe setting. Carl entered the cave area with 4 children. While moving through one of the tighter tunnels, he tried to turn around, but got stuck. At first, it didn't seem serious. The indoor caves were designed with safety in mind, especially for kids. But as time passed, it became clear Carl couldn't move. He was trapped in a very narrow tunnel, and the pressure on his body started to build. The more time passed, the more his condition worsened. Staff at the center immediately responded. They followed emergency procedures and began dismantling parts of the climbing wall to reach him, but they weren't able to get to him. Just after 3 p.m., they called for outside help. Rescue teams from several agencies responded, including Keswick Mountain Rescue, Cumbria Fire and Rescue, Cumbria Ore Mines Rescue Unit, the Great North Air Ambulance, local police, and paramedics. The area was cleared, and efforts began to free Carl from the tunnel. As rescuers arrived, staff and other climbers kept working to dismantle the wall. Carl had now been trapped for over 4 hours in a narrow fiberglass tunnel with very little space and oxygen. The pressure on his body was causing serious internal harm, and his health was rapidly declining. After a long and difficult rescue, Carl was finally freed. He was still alive, but in critical condition. He had suffered severe internal trauma while stuck. He was rushed to Cumberland Infirmary in Carlisle for emergency treatment. At the hospital, Carl was admitted to the intensive care unit. Doctors tried to save him, but the damage was too great. His condition got worse as his organs began to fail. Carl's sister, Olivia Short, stayed by his side from the start. She later shared that Carl was moved to a private room as his condition declined. Surrounded by loved ones, he passed away at exactly 3 p.m. on April 30th, 8 days after the accident. He was formally identified, and an inquest into his death was opened soon after. Assistant Coroner Dr. Nicholas Shaw explained that Carl had been stuck in the fiberglass tunnel for several hours, leading to a dangerous compression of his body. Despite all medical efforts, he could not recover, and comfort care was given. Carl's death deeply affected those who knew him. Olivia called him her best friend and baby brother. They spoke daily, often playing word games and talking about nature. She said her heart was broken, as was the rest of the family's. Carl had a brilliant mind. He loved space, was passionate about solar storms, and even predicted one that occurred during the week he was unconscious. He had National Aeronautics and Space Administration's Hubble images tattooed on his arm. He was also photophobic and often wore dark glasses and a hat. He encouraged others to embrace their differences and lived his life with curiosity and care. Over 50 people helped in the rescue effort. Staff, rescuers, and emergency crews worked under extreme pressure. Many said it was one of the most difficult operations they had ever done. Cumberland Council began an investigation into the incident. A spokesperson confirmed they were reviewing what happened. The Kong Adventure Center stated that staff followed all emergency procedures and called for help as soon as they realized how serious the situation was. Carl's story is one of an unexpected tragedy in a place meant for adventure. He was loved, respected, and full of wonder for the world around him. He was 49 years old. It was April 2nd, 2011 in Norridge, Illinois. At Go Bananas, a family amusement center near Chicago, families were enjoying a typical Saturday evening filled with games, music, and birthday parties. Among the visitors was the Dansby family, 2 parents and their young twin sons, Jason and his brother. That night, the twins lined up to ride one of the park's indoor roller coasters, a small attraction called the Python Pit. The Python Pit wasn't a high-speed thrill ride. It was designed for young children. The track was just 8 feet high. The ride cars were small, and it sat behind a curtained entrance separated from the louder arcade area. Inside, the lighting was dim, but not completely dark. Jason and his brother were seated in the front car. It should have been a routine ride. But shortly after it started, Jason began acting distressed. Witnesses said he was squirming in his seat and yelling for his mom. Other riders began shouting for the staff to stop the ride, but the ride didn't stop. On the second lap, Jason somehow slipped out from under the safety bar. He stood up, turned around, and faced the car behind him. Riders nearby leaned forward, urging him to sit down. But before they could react, the coaster entered a third lap, and Jason fell. He dropped between the front and second cars, landing on the ground about 3 to 4 feet below. The area he fell into was partly hidden behind a wall, making it hard for staff to see what had happened. The ride continued. People started screaming. The Shihadi family, seated directly behind Jason, was among those shouting for help. But then something even worse happened. On the fourth lap, the ride passed over the area where Jason had fallen. The Shihadi said they felt the impact as the cars ran over him. Still, the ride did not stop. It went through a 5th and final lap, again passing over Jason. Only then did it finally stop. Riders were crying, frozen, or calling for help. Jason's parents rushed to the scene, but it was too late. Emergency responders arrived soon after and confirmed that Jason had passed away from multiple injuries. His death was ruled an accident. Jason's parents had watched it all happen. Police Chief James Jobe, who was at the scene, described them as heartbroken. The park immediately shut down for inspection. The Illinois Department of Labor arrived and ordered the Python Pit closed. The ride was walled off and eventually dismantled. Jason had met the ride's height requirement, but the key question became how he managed to escape the safety bar. That question led to multiple lawsuits. A woman named Marion Grant filed a lawsuit saying she was traumatized after trying to help. She claimed the ride was too fast, poorly supervised, and lacked proper safety features. The Shihadi family also sued, describing how they shouted to stop the ride and tried to help Jason before he fell. They said the coaster ran over him twice and that the ride continuing after his fall put everyone at risk. This wasn't the first issue with the Python Pit. In 2006, a child was injured near the eye. In 2008, one child had a head injury and another broke her wrist. Still, there had been no serious action until Jason's case. Inspectors found no mechanical issues, but the park was cited for poor record keeping. Go Bananas owner and manager were charged with safety violations related to documentation. Jason's family filed a wrongful death lawsuit, and the Python Pit never reopened. While the park resumed operations days later, the memory of that night lingered. Jason was remembered as a joyful and spirited child. His great-uncle described him as someone who had more spirit and joy than anyone in the world. The tragedy left a lasting mark on the community and changed the lives of everyone who witnessed it. It was June 19, 2019 in Lowell, North Carolina. 12-year-old Matthew Liu had just celebrated his birthday 2 days earlier. That Wednesday evening, his family brought him to Altitude Trampoline Park in Gaston County for more fun. Matthew was full of energy, known for his kind nature and love for tennis. He had spent 3 months training with coach Adrian Reyes at the Southampton Racket Club. His coach called him a loving kid, always happy and playful. That night was meant to be another fun memory, but things didn't go as planned. The trampoline park had more than just trampolines. One major attraction was a climbing feature called the Clip-and Climb. It used a harness and belay system that participants were required to clip into for safety. Before climbing, staff would fit each person with a harness and explain how to connect to the safety system. Matthew approached the climbing wall. According to the park's internal report, a certified staff member fitted him with the harness and explained how to clip into the belay line. The equipment was working properly. The staff member had completed all required training, but Matthew never attached himself to the belay line. Despite the instructions, he began climbing without being safely connected. Just moments later, he lost his grip or footing and fell from about 10 to 15 feet. There was no belay line to slow his fall. He hit the ground with serious force and was knocked unconscious. Panic spread quickly. One of the first 911 calls came from Matthew's mother. Her voice trembled as she told the dispatcher that Matthew was breathing a little bit, but he was unconscious. Paramedics arrived quickly. Matthew was still alive, but in critical condition. He was taken to Caramount Regional Medical Center, then airlifted to Levine Children's Hospital in Charlotte due to the seriousness of his injuries. He never woke up. Matthew passed away the next day, June 20th. That same day, local police and company officials reviewed surveillance footage. After their review, it was confirmed there was no foul play. It was ruled an accident. The park shut down the climbing wall and closed for the day. A sign on the door read, "Due to an injury at the park and out of respect for the family, the park is closed today." Courtney Wild, the company's executive vice president of global operations, stated that safety rules were followed. The harness was checked, staff certified, and equipment functional. However, Matthew failed to clip into the belay line. The company launched an internal investigation with an outside safety expert from the International Association of Trampoline Parks. A week later, Wild confirmed it was a tragic human error. Matthew was shown how to clip in, but didn't, and no one noticed. As a result, Altitude Trampoline Park removed the climbing wall from its Lowell location permanently. The case raised questions about how these parks are regulated. In North Carolina, no agency oversees trampoline park safety. Neither the state's Department of Labor nor the Department of Insurance had authority over them. News reports revealed the state didn't require regular inspections. Companies handled staff training based on manufacturer guidelines. Starting the next year, third-party inspections became mandatory for some industry associations, but for Matthew it was too late. Matthew's loss deeply affected his community. He was known for visiting elderly neighbors just to keep them company. One neighbor, Lorraine Dalpiaz, said that he was the nicest young man she had ever seen. His coach said Matthew always made others laugh and got along with everyone. Emergency responders had been called to the park 3 other times that year for injuries, but none were fatal. Matthew's case was the first death at any of their locations across the country. To this day, many questions remain. Was the instruction clear enough? Should another staff member have double-checked the clip? Was it too much to expect a child to handle their own safety connection? All it took was one misstep, one clip that never connected. Matthew Liu had a bright future, but on a night meant for celebration, that future disappeared in seconds.